We are, I say the second paragraph. So it's all to explain Avodas HaTshuva eventually. To understand that, he's speaking B'chlal Avodah, that the Avodah is Elikus compared to fire, the Nekuda being that fire is connected to and desires and is drawn to beyond creation, and it's tethered by the fuel, the consumption of the fuel. Explained that's the bittul, that's mamshech Elikus in via in Avodah, Machshava, Dibur Maisa, in Avodah further, Avodah Tefillah. That was the Chiddush, that you need Avodas HaBittul is required in Tefillah and in Torah and in Maisa, in Tzedakah. On the contrary, the further down we go, the greater the need for Bittul, for the fuel to be consumed, for to hold the fire. The last thing he said was, when he translated this Al-Dera after talking about the Avodah of Tefillah and Torah and Gemilas Chasodim, so likewise the Maila, there's three kinds of Kelim. There's Pnimim and Tzoyim, three levels. The Chitzonim, the inner Keli, the middle level, and the external level. So the further external, the greater and more the Metzius, and the greater the need for Bittul. And this is going to elaborate upon now the Yuvan Zeh.
Based on this, can I ask a small question? In a couple of ACs back, where he was trying to bring the Mila of Ria over Shmiya, now that we learned two ACs further, we see that in order to accomplish a bigger change, or sorry, the biggest change is through a physical, when chitzonim, or the most mundane thing. So why is he bringing in two ACs back the mashal for Ria? Ria is a higher power than Shmiya.
Yeah.
Shmiya can affect deeper.
The point of Riyah was that because it's a higher faculty, it can actually see a Davar Gashmi. We're talking in our world. In our world, it descends lower, and you can see something. Shmiya, they're all physical faculties. Shmiya, which is a lower faculty, can only hear about something. You can't be toifus it. That's what he wants to say, that the higher koyach descends lower. That's what he wants to bring out with the Riyah. Or to explain why Torah, which is higher than Tefillah, comes down dafkin dibur. But then he added immediately, but Torah also, Torah dibur. Torah comes in dibur. Chaim him mitzayim bepeh. Then he added immediately that it's not a true marshal Riyah, because Torah has both milas. Torah has the mila also of machshava, of iyon, of tefillah. So it has both in yonim. But the fact that tefillah be'ikr is kavana, and in Torah, especially Torah shebiksav, it's dibur. Yoytze v'limadet ha'moisam by dibur alone. And he just wanted a bavaran. Torah is higher than tefillah. So why is it that Gosha on speech, which is lower than tefillah, which is iyon and machshava? And it's Adarab, because Torah is higher, comes lower, but it also has the Ma'ilov. That's why he brought it here, to say that in our world, a higher faculty engages the world deeper than a lower faculty. Riyah is higher, it's a deeper level in the nefesh. As we explained, the person sees something, he's affected much deeper than hearing about it. So it comes from a deeper place and affects a deeper place, and that's why it's able to descend lower and engage the world in such a way that it sees the world mamish. When you hear about something, now the mile of hearing about, there's a mile in hearing about something over seeing. Your engagement in it, you're not just passive, you're a participant. It's more pneumistic in that way.
So based on this, you would say that Shmiya affects is like tefillah, dibur. Shmiya, Ria effects is like Torah, and Moishe effect is the effect of mitzvahs.
Yeah. Well, the Maimon spoke machshava, dibur, and Moishe. So dibur was Torah.
Okay, machshava.
Machshava,
dibur, Moishe.
Tefillah, dibur, Torah, and Moishe is chasodim, corresponding to yeah.
So between machshava and dibur, the Maimon is contrasting Riyah and Shmiyah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was almost parenthetic, in brackets, Nakuda, was to illustrate how Torah is high and comes low. Okay, so now he's explaining that the lower the keli, the greater the need for bittul. And there's 3 levels of keli in general. There's the inner, all things have 3 levels. But the inner dimension, the middle, the core, the not center, but not better words. Upon him, in general, there's this essence, there's etzem, klal, and prat, which is really related to this as well. But anyway, so the inner, pnimius, the inner, and the external. So the further outward, the greater the metzius, the greater the need for bittul. To explain this now, to understand this within a person, we said earlier, person reflects the entire creation, because he's made by divine design deliberately in the form and image above. So all of Ishtalshalus is reflected in him, and all of creation is a product of Ishtalshalus. This is true of the way of the construct of the nefesh and the guf. So what do we find? The hinde klolis aguf nechlek lagim l'chalokim klolim. There are 3 general divisions in the body: rosh, guf, v'regel, head, torso, or body, and the legs. Shem kelim lagim l'hakeches machshava dibur ma'aseh. In general, they are the respective kelim for thought, speech, and action. Obviously, it's machshav hibarosh. So the thought is in the head. And speech actually comes from the torso, the body, the heart, as I'll say in a moment. I don't know what this means scientifically. Maybe Yimio does. The breath of speech actually comes from the heart. He adds in brackets, even though speech is articulated by the 5 organs of speech, the tongue, the palate, the lips, etc. Where do they belong? So he says, number 1, he points out they're in the head, but the lower part of the head. Right, the mouth is the lowest part of the head, but it's still in the head. So he concludes, so the 5 organs of speech, that's what gives the raw breath or sound its form. But the actual source of speech, the hevel dibur, like he says in Tanya, is from the heart. I don't know if there's any source before Tanya for this. It's in Geras HaKodesh. Exactly what it means physically, also don't know. Yeah?
You can't speak without your lungs.
You can't speak without your lungs. So, and
he's not saying that here.
Yeah, he's saying the heart. Well, yeah, breath, lungs, heart pumps out. Maybe that's the shot. Yeah, you want to say something? Maybe that's the shot. Something like that. Okay. All to say that machshava is in the head, and dibur belongs to the emtsoi, the lower part. Furthermore, adds that machshava obviously is primarily for seichel. The person is a thinker, so primarily it's to be expected that he's thinking about ideas and speech. And speech, Bachalal, adds there's another point to it, that speech is used primarily to express your feelings. That's the whole point. You got a feeling and you're expressing it. So dibur is primarily for dibur. Seichel doesn't need dibur. You have a strong emotion, you want to express it. It's welling within you, and you can't, if it's a strong emotion, it's almost impossible to contain the feeling of whatever it is going on. But seichel adrabah, the deeper the seichel, the stronger the seichel, the less dibur. It's most machshava. So dibur is the levush for midas shem mishkonon belev. So where is the midas? Of course, in the heart, that's the body, the guf. Ma'asehu beregel, and of course, action, the legs. Now, is an interesting observation, thinking outside the box here. So in these gimel chalokim, the head is higher than the body, right? Sits atop the body. It's the head, it's the top. No, sorry. In the head, there rests the klolas achayis, the life force of the body, via the brain and the nervous system. Meaning, the chayis that extends to the body comes really from the brain. It's from the brain, it's drawn to the various individual organs. Furthermore, it's all to bring out the mila, it's the pneumius of the body. The head is the pneumius of the body. The head is the place where the higher faculties reside. And so on. Understanding, seeing. So it sits atop physically because it has the higher faculties, and all the highs comes from there. The physical layout is reflective of the reality. The pneumius begashmius. And the bodies that accordingly is higher than the regel. Now here comes interesting question. You would have thought the head would be bigger than the body. It's funny, kids draw pictures and have the head bigger because that's the person. That's the ikar person, right? And yet, it should have been that way. And the body should, Mr. La, yeah, because the opposite. And we would think that the legs would be, I'm sorry, the guf of the body would be bigger in size than the raglayim, having more chayis there. Yet, it's the opposite. Sharosh cotton maguf, the head is smaller than the torso, and the body of aguf cotton regel, and the guf is smaller than the legs. Start at the thigh. Tamadova, this is the thing he said before, that the lower the keli, the closer the keli is to the oir and the life force of the nefesh, so it's it's less of a mitzias, and it's smaller, therefore. Therefore, it's smaller. So this is the dugma mevari aguf. This is now to explain the inyan that as we get to lower levels of avodah and the bishtalshalos, the need for bittul is greater because the keli is bigger. There's more resistance. There's more substance. So likewise, amshach of the earth in the three kinds of kelim. He's going to say, no, he's going to explain in a minute what that means. Pnimium, which he said before, pnimium, inner, middle, and external. The inner kelim are not such a mitzias, relatively speaking. And the inner, rather the middle kelim are not such a mitzias, an independent mitzias, as are the chitzonitic kelim. So what is this? The Milo Baklolis teaches it out for us, and that is how is a hefresh. Pain, as reflected in the statement of the Zohar, his life force chad is one, and it goes to continue. And he and his causations are also one. So the question is, it could have been summarized: Ihu, chayoyu, v'garmoyu chad. Doesn't say that. There's two chads, base pamim chad, because the unity is not the same between he and chayohi and he and garmoyi. As he goes on to say, when you're not midas, got causations here. Kalim is midas. Midas, that's where there's kalim. Relative to seichel. Moichin is bottled to the oil. So they're not the same bittul, because midas are for a greater mitzias. Midas are subjective and moichin is objective. So objectivity is bittul. You're not in the way, you're just understanding the truth. But midas is already a relationship with the other and your feeling about it. Now we speak about moichin. Ikra moichin is chacham. In chapter 35. Yeah. The famous Agah b'Shem Moirei, the name of the Magid, Hatam, the reason, is quote directly here from the Agah. The reason that Ein Sof does not unite with Atzilus, even Atzilus. The entry must be Chachma. The Magid answers, so that's in the whole context of the Perek over there. What's Ein Sof? It's the truth. That he's the only reality, there's no other. Zuhi, this famous words of the Alter Tanya, quoted frequently by the Rebbe, Zuhi Madrigas, and Chassidus Bechlal. Zuhi Madrigas HaChachma, and that's what Chachma. Chachma is that Nakud of Bittul that acknowledges the objective truth that God's the only reality. And Chachma dominates Moichin. If Chachma is not there, the whole Moichin goes awry. It's not faithful to the original idea. Even in Gashmisdik ideas, Chachma is the critical component. It's that discovery that everything else simply develops. So what is Chachma? Chachma is Bittul. So Iyuv B'chayohi as a whole is a Pnimis Dike Bittul much greater than Iyuv V'Garmahi. Kamekin b'Midas Atzmam. And in Midas there's also two levels. There is Emtsoyim and Chitzonius, and that is in the Doima Yichben Nehi Shem Levarmi Gufa. The unity of Nehi, Netzachayid and Yesoid, which are outside the torso, the body itself. The body itself is where Chesed, Teferes reside. It's actually the shoulders, actually. Right shoulder is Chesed, left shoulder, Gvura, center is Teferes. And what's Nehi? Nehi they're not feelings. Nehi are not emotional states. Nehi, Netzachayid, Yesoid are auxiliary in the sense that that's what's required to implement the emotion. It's staying power. There's got to be bittul and Yesoid, empathy. They're not emotions. They're basically kalim for the higher emotions. So their yichud with the nefesh is not the same. The yichud, the chagas of the deeper, higher levels of the nefesh, chesed, gvura, tiferes, which that's emtsoyim. So now we understand what it means. The milo, that pnimium, I mean, there's all other models as well. But obviously, because every model in Chassidus that speaks in one context is true in the bigger context, because it's all one Eibishter is manifesting himself in all of these ways, but the unity threads through it all, right? Akoponim, so Moichin is the Pnimius and Midas is Emtsoyim, that's Chagas, and Nehi is, or particularly Malchus, doesn't say that, but even Nehi, because that's a Midah, Malchus is Mamash speech, it's Mamash Keli, pure Keli. But that is Chitzonius. Mzem Muven, concluding the paragraph. The further distant the kelis from the oid, from the etzem nefesh, maybe mitzias or the maila, the likus of the hula body, who oid himself. So the further mitzias yoyser, the greater the mitzias v'chein tzarachat yoyser is in bittul, and therefore the greater need for bittul. And what is that? That's in order to keep the fire tethered, the fuel's got to be consumed. As he continues, Zehu so the Avoid and the old Gimel Kavan Avoid that Tergimis Chasadim Sheim Keneged Machshava Dibra Ma'aser Rosh Guf Regel. We see the parallel. Yeah, Machshava Teira. I'm sorry, Tefillah Dibra Teira Ma'aser Gmilas Chasadim, corresponding to Rosh Guf Regel. So Echlis Bittul Dafke has to be Bittul Sheideza Yim Shachai Shalamayla. This is what keeps Elikus here. That's the room for it. right? As the Kotzke, the child famously said, where is God? Where you let him in? How do you let him in by making space? That's the consumption of the ego, what making space. That's what it means. Is a consuming fire. So for the Eibishter to be present, that's to be the surrender of the fuel. The fire only takes hold of that which it consumes. Likewise, the Maila. At time, he's summarizing, concluding the point. Why do we have to have bittul? The Charlotte base of bittul. What do you need bittul here? It's kedusha. He's a holy Jew. He's learning Torah. He's davening. He's giving tzedakah. Bittul. If you should be kulam efshali is gamin shal yeshes v'gaiva, because all of them can be. It's not just tainted; it can be driven by yeshes and gaiva. The gaiva reishis goyim. Gaiva explains at length. In the Chassidus is the beginning. It's referring to Amalek. The first of all the nations to attack the Yidden was Amalek. The Pnimis, it means that he embodies the whole root of the war against Kedusha. And what is that? Gaiva. That's Amalek. And that's Shreirish Kola Mineira. And Gaiva is the root of all evil. Vinyan Bezen matters as follows. Gam Belumazeh Gimla Pchinis Deresh Gufaregel. In the opposite of Kedusha is the parallel. There's also thing in the Vresh Gufaregel. All these levels. So therefore, the Haindo, so when the person is engaged in the Reish Gufaregel Baruchnius, they Tzahara, the Shabbat says, then I'm also here. They also have a Reish and Gufaregel partners with you in this endeavor. In fact, moreover, in the Never Shabbat, Yitzhak seeks to take the driver's seat in the whole thing. Not only can there be gaiva when it comes to the Rosh, you would think Seichel's objective, Seichel's about getting the truth. How can be room for ego in academia? How can there be ego in academia? The whole point is to know the truth. No. There can be gaiva there too. He has an intellectual reason for his arrogance. Even the lower levels of regel of Maisa, Gaiva there too. He's proud of his physical achievements. He's proud of its tzedakah, etc. Pride is not a bad thing. Gaiva, arrogance, that's the problem. Commissioner Kosev al Tiviyeni regel Gaiva. David Malach says, "Do not lead me literally to the feet of arrogance." By the way, that stands for Esrig. Rashi Tevis al Tiviyeni regel Gaiva. Rashi Tevis Esrig, because the Esrig is Bishleimus. He needs the biggest. He's a Baseichel, and he's a Lamdan, and he's a doer, he's an Askent, as mitzvahs. So Adra, because of his Shleimus, he needs al Tiviyeni regel Gaiva. I saw this somewhere. It's definitely in Mokem Musmach. Amazingly, these are the final words of the Baal Shem Tov before his Istalkus. They bent down their ears to hear what he's saying. He was murmuring. He said, Al Tiviyeni regel Gaiva. Can you imagine? He's leaving Elam Hazeh. I mean, you have to be a Baal Shem Tov. You don't have to be a Baal Shem Tov to appreciate that at this already, a person goes beyond arrogance and Gaiva. He's about to face the heavenly court, the Eibishter. At this moment, Baal Shem Tov is the Eibishter. Help me not to go explain. But upon him, that's what he said. It leaves us with just how subtle and deep this avodah is. In fact, if there's no other avodah, this is the only avodah. Everything else is a consequence of that. It's all rooted in the Gaiva, Yeshus. We have to be careful and fight it. In all of the levels, without bittul, the fire does not take hold.
Rabbi, if I may, at this point, then as a result what we're doing is on the sublime level on each aspect. There's the gevura, which basically, when we think of the dibur that comes from the heart, it's like Ramban was saying, with the 13 filters that we put it through to ensure that the gaiva doesn't come through and that we don't have an inner agenda, that the bitul reigns over us in such a way that the sidrach achra and everything that we do in our lives between the two souls and so on, that everything comes out. That the machshava can be one thing, but that the body has to fight. So that's where we become the tikkun olam begins with us on every level. That we're fighting that inner essence within ourselves to ensure that we come out with that which is filtered through the gevura, which holds us back. That's strength or restraint.
Yeah.
Not to have the gaiva.
Yeah. Right. Good. Yeah. Everything we described till now is the avodah of the tzaddik. He's been on the path of he's building the three worlds in his own self, meaning Alikus is residing there. A person is a microcosm of creation, of ishtalshalus. He's also being mamshech Alikus in biyah, transforming his ishtalshalus. That in biyah should be drawn there in soft, even though he himself is completely incomparable to the ilamis mikol mokim. Yumshech v'yoches, it should be drawn and held. Behem al yedei hakelim the ma'isa terem mitzvahs the machshava dibur u'ma'isa. Let's get the flow here. Opposite, I'm sorry. Good. Let's go back. That there should be drawn. He's burning the gimel oilamus. There's a gamas a gimel oilamus biyah. Shimshach bahem eirin sof. The shemitzat atzmi goes to eirin sof. The eirin sof is ein be'erach klal. I missed that line. The eirin sof is completely incomparable to the oilamus. So how are they in the oilamus? Because mokim yumshach v'yoches bahem. How does the eirin sof reside in them? And likewise in him. Through his machshava dibur u'ma'isa, bedugmasa like the fire, even though it's drawn upwards. When there's a keli, so the fire is held and the keli has to be consumed. That's the bit. Everything we described till now is the avodas tzaddikim. Someone who chata, that's inadvertent, to pogam, blemished, va'ava, that's already deliberate and transgressed. In the yochel hamshecha isha can't be mamshech the fire from above. She doesn't have the kelim; they're broken, or there are none. So what's the eitzev? She can't go to the fire itself because he has no keli for it. Where's the Torah? Where's the Avodah? Where's the Gemilas Chasadim? Obviously, it doesn't mean it has none, but it's got to be complete in order for the fire to reside. So, what's the solution? He can't reach the fire. There's no keli, so he has to go to the shorish to the source of the fire. So this is the rock. This is the avodah of tshuva, which is with a greater strength, literally koyach, than avodah tzaddik. Vinyan bazeh, inyan the fire that's present in the rock shorish, which is the source of fire. Is behel it's so concealed that it can't be identified. There's a helem that the mitzias in its own world, as it were, but we just don't see it on the outside. The door is locked, but inside it stays there. Begolui, the outside doesn't see it because there's a screen, but inside he revealed the person. Here the fire, even inside, is not identifiable. It's mainly it's there. So how is the fire extracted? You have to strike the rock, something with great force. Unlike a fire that's in the coal, that's not manifest, but it's a glowing coal. You don't strike the coal to extract the fire. You have to be gentle. That's a concealment, it's not manifested, but it's b'mitzias. You have to a bellows. You just have to blow, and the fire will emerge. Not so the tzur. And that's why tshuva has to be with great force. We say them is b'cheila yatir. Cheila means force to begin with. Yatir means additional intense force. Like by striking the rock, that reveals the spark, the fire. So this is what they told Moishe Rabbeinu. When simple meaning, when my glory will pass by, God's glory pass by, and you'll see the back of me, and you'll be placed for some ticha b'nikas hatzor, you're placed in the cleft of the rock. You said before that kveidi, and you're not Torah kanal siv gimel. Bavur kveidi, my glory is past. Bavur is in a remes to the avera. And the she'evrim chas v'sholem al Torah person transgresses kveidi. Bavur kveidi. So what's the eitzah for some ticha b'nikas hatzor? And I'll place you in the cleft of the rock, the Avodah of Tshuva. You have to be mamshich, not from the fire, but from the etzem. Shetzorich lahamshich, and b'chinas nikras hatzur davke mokir ha'esh, which will continue Be'ez Hashem tomorrow. The source of the fire. What's tomorrow? Thursday. Yeah.
I'm just thinking
The Gashmi is
like a crevice, like
a crevice inside. Yeah, a cave, little cave, like a cleft, depression.